promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar. Good afternoon and many thanks for tuning in to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and all around the world on WADR.org. This is Newslink and here are the top stories. The ECOWAS Court of Justice Conference in Banjul concludes with recommendations to prevent unconstitutional changes in government. Nigeria's Joint Health Workers Union begins an indefinite nationwide strike as the government fails to meet its demand.
Upon the expiration of the ultimatum by midnight of 25th May 2023, I therefore declare the indefinite strike action and it commences today.
Ghana risks losing mineral revenue to China if the nation defaults on the repayment of 4 collateralized loans. And in Cameroon, separatist fighters free over 24 women abducted in the northwest region.
I think efforts should be intensified to prosecute perpetrators of violence against women and girls. Above all, I think the government should take steps to bring the crisis to an end.
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is James Adjapong with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining us. Now to our very first story. The ECOWAS Court of Justice is calling on the regional bloc to sanction perpetrators of unconstitutional change of government and their collaborators while ensuring citizens' protection. The court asks the community to amend the Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance, an instrument to prevent tenure extension by political leaders. It also requested the modification of protocol to allow for judicial intervention in election matters. The WADR Sankole Janko reports.
The ECOWAS Court of Justice, following a 4-day conference on constitutional change of government, made recommendations to arrest this concern as seen in 3 member states, namely Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea. Proposals also include the adoption of a prompt and effective method of addressing the root causes of the crisis and conflicts in the sub-region, which participants opined are linked to the poor socio-economic conditions of the populations. While the court in addition urged the bloc to sanction coup plotters and their collaborators, less than 50% of the countries in the community adhere to its ruling. Justice Edward Asante is the president of the ECOWAS Court of Justice.
The current compliance rate, which is less than 30% with judgments of the court, is not encouraging and is capable of eroding public confidence in the court. The most important element is the political will and good faith of member states to comply with the judgments of the court.
Justice Asante called on member states to commit to the implementation of the court's protocols.
We urge all member states to domesticate the ECOWAS revised treaty and protocol on the court in order to create the enabling legal environment for the enforcement of the judgments of the court by the national courts of member states.
Delegates at the conference largely discussed the need for strict adherence to the tenets of the Protocol of Democracy and Good Governance and ensure political stability and peace. With regards to overstay in power, addressing the root causes of tenure elongation and eliminating all pseudo-democratic laws, the court says is paramount. For the ECOWAS Court of Justice, the Banjul Conference provided a platform to brainstorm to find solutions to completely eradicate the unconstitutional change of governments in the region. For Newslink and West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sankole Janko reporting from Banjul.
Here in Senegal, opposition politician Ousmane Sonko is expected to arrive in Dakar today from Ziguinchor in the south of the country where he is mayor. Following the prosecutor's demand in his rape trial, Sonko called for a caravan of freedom from Ziguinchor to Dakar to end the resistance to the regime. Recall the prosecutor Wednesday demanded 10 years imprisonment for the alleged rape of Aji Sal, a former employee of Massage Palo, and 5 years imprisonment for youth corruption. The verdict of the criminal chamber is expected on June 1st. The opposition leader has since denounced a plot to keep him out of the presidential race due next year. In Nigeria, a nationwide shutdown by the Joint Health Sector Union is presumably effective after Thursday midnight without any information of dialogue between the union and the government. The last communique from the umbrella body of all health professionals in the country justified the stoppage, saying the state failed to meet its demands. Our Abuja correspondent Usman Umar completes the story.
In a letter dated May 9, 2023, the leadership of the union issued a 15-day ultimatum to the federal government over alleged inconsistencies of the government in the ongoing negotiations to adjust the consolidated health salary structure for health workers on their platforms. Johesu, which serves as an umbrella body for health workers' unions and associations, noted that the government had shown tendencies to shift from their agreed terms and rules of engagement relating to non-discrimination in the determination of the wages and benefits packages of health workers in Nigeria. Dr. Ogbonna Chimela is the national vice chairman of Johesu.
Since the federal government is yet to meet these demands, our members have directed by the USA National Executive Council that we should proceed on an indefinite strike action upon the expiration of the ultimatum by midnight of 25th May 2023. I therefore declare the indefinite strike action and it commences today.
Part of the demands of the union is that government pays a peculiar allowance to health workers under the aegis of Johesu and AHP, as well as the immediate and unconditional implementation of the consultant cadre circular of pharmacists in all federal health institutions. Other demands include payment of withheld salaries of its members in the Federal Medical Center in Owerri, Jos University Teaching Hospital, Lagos State Teaching Hospital, and their withheld April and May 2018 salaries, speedy adjustment of retirement age from 60 to 65 years, and the exclusion of some health workers in the payment of new hazard allowance, as well as payment of COVID-19 allowance balance. The government is yet to respond to the latest action by the union. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
If you are just tuning in, this is Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM, and we are streaming all around our platforms on WADR.org. Ghana rakes loosen mineral revenue and electricity sales if the nation defaults on the repayment of 4 loans collateralized from China. According to the International Monetary Fund, IMF, Ghana has at least 8 collateralized loans from China with different mineral resources as security against default. As of the end of 2022, Ghana owed China $1.9 billion, out of which $619 million were collateralized loans. Atiarini Bella Lawson tells us more.
For Ghana, Chinese loans have been a reliable funding source for major projects since the year 2000. In 2 decades, Accra has raked up close to $5 billion from at least 41 Chinese loans. After several years of near unbridled borrowing, Ghana is now debt-trapped and wading through its worst economic crisis in a generation. The loan agreement means in the event Ghana defaults on honoring its debt obligations, Beijing has the right to use proceeds from Ghana's oil, cocoa, bauxite, or even the sale from electricity to settle the debt. This came to light after the IMF detailed an elaborative assessment of Ghana's economy after running to it for an economic bailout. President Nana Akufo-Addo, however, believes there's nothing to be scared of when dealing with Asia's giant, China.
It's a matter of controversy in the West about China. But for us, they've been strong friends. And in the time of this difficulty, they proved to be strong friends.
The IMF country representative for Ghana, Dr. Leandro Medina, trusts that if Ghana adheres to measures suggested by the fund, the country can get out from this economic quagmire.
On the bilateral front, we have received assurances in the context of the G20 Common Framework, right? The Official Creditor Committee was formed and co-chaired by China and France have provided the assurances. So that is very promising.
Dr. Lloyd Amoa, Director for the Center for Asian Studies at the University of Ghana, on his part, thinks until the country focuses on fixing the structural economic issues, nothing will change in years to come.
there's something about the tools of running our economy that we are not even addressing at the fundamental level. And so long as we don't do that and we keep papering over these key fundamental questions, I think that we might yet be coming back to the same issues 20 years from now.
Reporting for Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Atiewin Imbila Lawson in Accra.
The African Development Bank, AFDB, says economies in the continent remain resilient despite multiple shocks occasioned by several factors. This was revealed in the bank's 2023 Economic Outlook in Africa, focused on mobilizing private finance for climate and green growth in the continent. Released on the sidelines of its annual meeting in Egypt, the report notes that African countries are facing multiple shocks, such as the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and supply chain disruptions worsened by the Russia-Ukraine war. Ogi Obiarika has more.
The report also blamed Africa's economic challenges on tighter global financial conditions, which cumulatively led to a reduction in the continent's real gross domestic product (GDP) growth rate from 4.8% in 2021 to 3.8% in 2022. The bank, however, says economies should stabilize with an average growth rate of 4.1% in 2023 to 2024. This growth is, on the flip side, strongly subjected to major risk factors. First is the subdued global growth, weighing on African exports, exacerbating debt servicing costs, followed by the significant losses and damages from frequent extreme weather events and the Russia-Ukraine war, which continues to disrupt global supply chains. Other factors include insecurity and elevated geopolitical risk due to upcoming national elections in some countries. The African Economic Outlook 2023 underscores the urgency of accelerating climate action and green transitions to drive the continent's inclusive and sustainable development.
Ogi Obiarika filed that report. Meanwhile, Sierra Leoneans are anguished after a centuries-old iconic cotton tree was toppled by wind Thursday following torrential rains. President Julius Maada Bio said the incident has left a gap in people's hearts, especially since the tree was regarded as a national treasure. There is no stronger symbol of our national story than the cotton tree, a physical embodiment of where we come from as a country, Bio said. Standing 70 meters tall and 15 meters wide, the roughly 400-year-old tree has been the country's national symbol for decades. The tree has appeared on banknotes, national publications, and creative works by the citizens and was a tourist destination. Queen Elizabeth II had visited the spot to mark the country's independence in 1961, according to a statement by Zebek International. You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM, Dakar, Senegal. Here's a reminder of our top stories. The ECOWAS Court of Justice Conference in Banjul concludes with recommendations to prevent unconstitutional changes in government. Nigeria's Joint Health Workers Union begins an indefinite nationwide strike as the government fails to meet its demand. Ghana risks losing mineral revenue to China if the nation defaults on the repayment of 4 collateralized loans. And in Cameroon, separatist fighters free over 24 women abducted in the northwest region. Still ahead, we have our newspaper review, guest interview, and some sports updates. Kindly stay with us.
You are listening to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal.
It's 14 minutes past 12 in our studios here in West Africa Democracy Radio. Don't forget you can always follow our discussions on Twitter and Instagram at WADR News and on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. Elsewhere in Cameroon, the 30 women abducted on May 20th by separatist fighters in the northwestern region have regained their freedom. The development was communicated Thursday by Simon Emily Moore, the prefect of the Mezam department. Their release, according to Moore, began at midday on Wednesday and concluded by evening the same day. He said most of the women had scars that indicate violence and require medical attention, but stated that no ransom was paid to secure their release. While some are happy Women rights activists like Sonia Akato of the Young African Defenders in Action is calling for punitive measures against the perpetrators.
I think efforts should be intensified to prosecute perpetrators of violence against women and girls, because when it happens like this, it would deter other perpetrators from carrying out the same act. The government should also try to extend some form of economic support to women affected by violence, especially those who have been internally displaced. These women really need this support in order to start up again. Most of them have come to places they are not familiar with. Some of them, they have been forced to involve in prostitution, begging, and so on. So if the government can extend some kind of economic support to these women, I think it will go a long way to help them. Efforts should also be accelerated to reissue identity documents and other important civil papers that these displaced women and girls have lost during the conflict. Above all, I think the government should take steps to bring the crisis to an end by engaging into meaningful and inclusive dialogues with maybe the non-state armed groups and even the women.
Sonia Chato is a member of the Young African Defenders in Action in Cameroon. Recall, the women were kidnapped on May 20th for having demonstrated the day before against the payment of a tax imposed on the population by separatist militias. And to some health news, the continent's biggest polio immunization campaign since 2020 kicked off today in 3 West African and Central African countries. The combined effort by national health authorities targets nearly 21 million children under the age of 5. This initiative, which will begin in Cameroon, Chad, and Niger before being extended to the Central African Republic next week, comes after the detection of 14 cases of type 2 poliovirus in certain countries this year. Although no cases have been reported this year in Cameroon, neighboring Chad and the Central African Republic is taking part in the vaccination campaign to prevent the virus from spreading, particularly in border areas. The multi-country initiative is backed by the WHO with the support of the Global Polio Eradication Initiative.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
Let's join our correspondent in Abuja, Usman Umar, for a newspaper review.
Today we have 2 papers to look at, the Leadership newspaper and the National Star. On the front page of the Leadership, you have this screaming headline, 10th National Assembly, Uncertainty as North-South Supremacy Battle Looms. With a rider, Traditional Rulers Intervene. This story is on the ongoing battle for the various leadership positions at the National Assembly in both the Senate and the House of Representatives. Various political interests have actually been playing out. You have the APC, that is the ruling All Progressives Congress, coming out with positions already divided according to how the party wants the National Assembly to be structured. How that plays out, we will have to wait as the fireworks continues in the National Assembly. Now, right above that particular story, you have another one saying 3 days to go. Appeal Court finds Owuru 40 million naira over suit against Tinubu's inauguration. The Court of Appeal in Abuja Division has slammed a fine of 40 million naira on a former presidential candidate, Chief Ambrose Owuru, for filing frivolous suit to stop the inauguration of the president-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu on May 29. Not just Owuru, there have been others who have approached various courts, actually, asking for the stoppage of the May 29 inauguration. Appeal Court finds the suit by this former presidential aspirant, Chief Ambrose Owuru, as being frivolous, and of course he has to pay a fine of 40 million naira. Now we quickly move over to New National Star. The New National Star has as a screaming headline, Scandals, Large-Scale Corruption Trails Buhari's Exit. With riders, National Assembly unearths sizzling funds in ministries, agencies, parastatals. And second rider, regime was in decades. Some days to the end of the President Buhari-led administration, a lot of other issues are coming up with regards to allegations of massive corruption, especially in ministries, departments, and agencies. Of course, we also know that part of the documents submitted as part of the transition document include reports on projects, both ongoing and completed. We will get to know more details, the nature of these scandals are, how much are involved in each of the ministries. But of course, this also suffices to say that even as at on Thursday, the Attorney General and Minister of Justice of the Federation, talking about Abubakar Malami, was before National Assembly Ad Hoc Committee investigating some alleged corrupt practices. But of course, all these are pointers to some fireworks that we may likely see when the new administration comes on board on Monday, that is May 29th, 2023. And it's on this note that we come to the end of the press review segment for today with me, Usman Umar. It's back to you in the studios.
Thank you, Usman Umar, for the newspaper review.
Politics,
analysis on major news,
social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
The African Union this week, precisely on Thursday, celebrated its 60th anniversary since its establishment in 1963. The Continental Organization was formed after 32 heirs of independent African states came together to liberate the continent from colonialism, imperialism, and apartheid. But 6 decades after the start of this remarkable journey by AU, some parts of the continent are grappling with insecurity and violent extremism, resulting in massive displacement, food insecurity, health epidemics, and serious economic challenges. To this effect, policy analysts believe that the Union has not actively organized itself to mitigate these challenges confronting its jurisdiction, which hence threatens Africa's Agenda 2063. Our guest, Dr. Michael Nketia, an Accra-based international relations expert, underscores AU's consolidated gains and its approach to providing equal socio-economic synergy for all member states on its platform. Let's join our guest.
It's obvious that African Union, in the latter, since its formation, has had some form of influence from external forces and factors. And currently, if you look at the Constitution of the African Union, its membership has not been violated by any foreign dominance. However, if you look at the funding of the African Union and even the infrastructure-wise, we know that the headquarters donated to the Union by the Republic of China. And we know that following the demise of Muammar Gaddafi, funding for the African Union has also been very, very problematic. And all these instances give credence to such assertions. If you look at the membership composition of it, individual members of the African Union are being influenced by other external forces. Currently, on the continent of Africa, the biggest creditor to African countries is China. The same consists of major world powers like the United States of America, Russia, and even Turkey, who have strong dominance and influence on the African continent, on the economies of local African countries. And all these membership states or member countries of the African Union are likely to take decisions or vote to favor some external forces who could influence the African Union.
So analysts have also criticized the Union of not able to firmly condemn, for instance, the Sudan war, the Tigray war, and coup in most parts of West Africa for peace promotion. Do you share a similar view?
Condemnation is not enough. If a supranational body like the African Union issues out a condemnation of current instability in Sudan, of instability in neighboring Mali, Burkina Faso, the Central African Republic, or whatever, that alone will not be enough. What is needed, which has been lacking for a very long time, is for the African Union to institute very, very practical measures, actionable measures to curtail the rise of conflicts on the African region, measures to address issues of peace and insecurity on the continent, and measures to address all these issues. These are the very fundamental issues that the African Union should be looking at. And I believe that by failing to do all these things, it means that people have every right to criticize them. As we speak now, there is no standing army for the African Union that can be used for peacekeeping missions on the continent. It has always been difficult to mobilize forces from the member states, and in most instances where they are successful at mobilizing, even funding has to be undertaken by external powers. So all these are instances that gives credence to such an assertion.
So finally, a major project of the AU is the African Continental Free Trade Area, with a lot of challenges surrounding its implementation. How can there be a synergy, in your view, that can be created for all these member states to be on the same economic platform?
Well, I disagree entirely with those who think the AFTA has not been working as expected. If you've studied AFTA, if you've engaged them, been part of their discussions and seminars, AFTA is doing really, really well on the African continent. And at its initial stages, as I expected, when the European Union decided to create a single market for all EU member states, they experienced much more diverse challenges than we are experiencing currently on the African continent with regards to AFTA. And I believe that the African Union has done so well with AFTA. However, what they need to do going forward is to move beyond the rhetorics and policies and get to the actual implementation of AFTA, where goods and services could easily move across borders, making sure that dictators and democracies alike open their borders to goods and services from and to member countries to encourage intra-African trade.
Michael Nketia is an international relations expert. And here's Sankule Janko with some sports updates.
Hello there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. The Gambia have secured a ticket in the round of 16 of the FIFA Under-20 World Cup after a 2-1 win against much fancied France on Thursday evening. An own goal scored by Tanguy Zokro and Mamin Sanan's strike were enough to earn Gambia a win and secure a place in the last 16. Captain Alhaji Sen missed a penalty for the Gambia before France leveler, but the young Scorpions held their nerves to win the match and book a place into the next phase of the competition. In an interesting post-match interview, goal scorer Mamin Sanya interviewed star player Adjapong about the match.
So Adam, how did you see the game? The game today was a tough one for us, but we give thanks. It was amazing. At the end, we got the 3 points. So what do you think about the team? The spirit, how is the spirit in our team? Yeah, the spirit in the team is great. As you can see, yeah, it's teamwork. Yeah, all our games, you can see the team spirit. Everyone is fighting for each other. Yeah.
Well, that was Gambian duo star player Adjapong talking to Thursday's match winner against France, Mamin Sanya. Meanwhile, Tunisia is a step closer to joining the Gambia and Nigeria in the round of 16 after a 3-0 win against Iraq. South Korea and Honduras shared the spoils after a 1-1 draw, and England beat Uruguay 3-2. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
Thank you, Sankule, for that sports review. We have come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to our listeners in the Gambia via Hot 104.3 FM and in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM Lofa County, and in Ghana Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi. Christian Mukidi has been on the console. Many thanks to Mustafa Sek for our Facebook Live coverage. Do interact with us via social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. I am James Adjapong. Good afternoon.
News, talk, music, get it all 24 hours on West Africa Democracy Radio.